Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today for the SAFE webinar. Today, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about storage locations and how they relate to SAFE. So let's get started. All right, I'm going to go into my site, which is my Tracker Testing Grounds Worldwide Headquarters site, and talk to you today a little bit about storage locations and how to set them up, how to apply permissions to them, and how to move them around if you would ever need to do that. And so I guess the first question to kind of talk about is, how do you classify storage locations? Well, there's been much debate over this and on this topic, and there are a few different ways to do this. And ultimately, it's up to you to decide which one works best for you and your agency. You can store items by type, for example, or you can store things, break them down into smaller units, sublocations, bins, etc. A question becomes, how big does a storage location need to get before you start to break things down into those smaller sublocation type units? For example, maybe you've started storing things by item type, and that item type might be CD or compact disc storage. And you'd like to break that up maybe by year. Why would you do that? Why would you start to create sublocations for that CD storage? Well, that becomes really useful when you have to do an inventory, for example. And say you're running a discrepancy report inside a SAFE to do your inventories for your CD storage. And you started this out in 2010 or whenever it was, and you only had 10 CDs that you were inventorying. Well, now it's 2021 and you've got well over 1,000 CDs that you have to inventory. When you go to do your inventory, and now you've broken this up by year, 2010, 11, 12, etc. And those each have maybe approximately 100 CDs in each one of those. When you go into tools and run your discrepancy reports to do your audits, it's a lot easier to inventory 100 CDs, for example, versus all 1,000 in that one CD storage location. So that is one reason why you would want to break things up. A reason why you might not want to break things up, maybe you have a found property storage location, and it's just one area. You don't have a whole lot of found property, and you don't need to subdivide that down into storage locations like, unit 1, shelving unit 1, shelf A, bin 3, and you just want to have found property as one large location, and that's it, and that works for you. Well, that's awesome. Well, now to get to your storage locations, out of your nav menu over on the left-hand side of the screen, you're just going to go into Tools and Storage Locations, and you'll be taken here. And that's going to display any and all storage locations that you currently have. Now, I'm assuming that most of you already have storage locations set up. So why does this, even interest you today? Well, what happens if you expand your current building's footprint? You add on to the building and you need to add more storage locations, or you want to add a storage location that you don't currently have. For example, maybe you have an impound lot that you never thought about adding into SAFE. Maybe you want to add that now. Or perhaps, you get orders from the court, court authorized destruction orders for your drugs, and maybe you'd like to create a disposal or a destruction bin where you can now house those items before doing something with them. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into scan. So first, let's go ahead and add add the building. So we've expanded onto our current facility, and we've added another building onto our current space. And so let's add a storage location. We're just going to click add storage location, that button there, and we're going to call it something. We'll call it building B. We have a building A that we're currently in, and we're going to add building B, and we'll save it there. And there's that storage location. And so now we just have building B. Perhaps there are locations within building B that we want to add to this. It's very easy to do that by scrolling, by going over in this building B's row and clicking on the blue plus sign. And in doing so, we can add sublocations to building B. So let's do that now. Let's add some shelving units. Let's do shelving unit A. And why don't we have a shelving unit B as well? So we have a couple of shelving units in the building. And let's save that. And as you'll see, those shelving units automatically got nested under building B. So that's kind of nice. Perhaps you'd further like to divvy that up by adding shelves onto your shelving units. Once again, you can go over in those rows, and underneath shelving unit A, I'm going to give that some unique names. Shelving unit A, shelf A, and shelving unit A, shelf B. And I'll do the same with shelving unit B as well. Shelving unit B. And why don't we call it something completely different? Shelving unit B, shelf A, and shelving unit B, shelf B. And I've done that because when you go to move items around, if you give these things, if you decide to break these things apart and give them unique names, when you go to move items around, at that point in time, you can just enter in SUBSA or SUBSB or whatever it is. And if it's a unique name, it will be presented very quickly without you having to dig too much deeper. And so that's the kind of structure I wanted to have for this shelving unit B and the sublocations that we created underneath of it. Now, when I created this, we can see here at the top that shelving unit B is active. That's true. Can you store things there? Yeah, that's true as well. And can you use this to add containers to? No, that's false. Underneath of there, and I do kind of want to change this around a little bit. So I'm going to select shelving unit B and I'm going to edit it because I don't want to allow people to store things there. And I'll show you why here in a minute. So I'm going to edit that, and I'm going to flip this slider from yes to no for where you can store things there. We'll say no to that and just save it there. Another thing that I want to do is I want to kind of do the same thing for shelving unit A and B. So let's select shelving unit A. We'll edit that. We'll change it from can store here from yes to no, and we're going to do the same thing for shelving unit B. Okay, so now in shelving unit B, that's active, and you cannot store things there. In shelving unit A, that's active, and you cannot store things there. We've done this because you want to force people to store things underneath of there on shelf A or shelf B, or in shelving unit B under sub SA or sub SB. Those are active and you're allowed to store things there. Now, if you'll also note under shelving unit B, I have not added any permission groups here because I don't want anyone accept another org admin to be able to access any of these areas within my new location. And so that's why I haven't specified any permission groups here. And so if no permission groups are specified under the groups column, then only another org admin will be able to access those areas in safe. Okay, let's keep going. You know, what if there are areas, however, that you want to create that you would like to give people access to? Well, let's click add a storage location. And let's add some more storage locations here. Maybe you'd like to add an impound lot or a destruction bin, and we'll click save. And those have been added right here. There's our destruction bin and there's our impound lot. Now with the destruction or a disposal bin, I don't want anyone to have access to that. And I've decided, you know what, I just want to have one destruction bin. I don't want to sub-segment that out and create sub-locations for it. I'm good with just having that one storage location. And that's fine. I'm just going to leave that the way it is. Is it active? Yeah, that's true. Can you store things there? That's true. You cannot use that to enter containers into. That's fine. And no groups have been specified, so only another org admin can access that. I'm good with that. So I'm just going to leave that alone, and off I go. Underneath that, however, is the impound lot. Is that active? Yeah, that's true. Can you store things there? Yeah, sure, no problem. But with the impound lot, I'm thinking, you know what? I'm thinking my basic users and my power users should probably have access to that. Now, I could take that and I can move that underneath temp blockers, but for right now, I don't want to do that. I just want to select the impound lot, and I'm going to edit, click the edit selected storage locations to edit that location. Now, if I ever want to rename that, at the name at the top of the list here, there's impound lot. I can put in whatever I want. Maybe I now have 2 impound lots, and we want to rename that to impound lot A. Underneath the groups field, you can just click in there, and now you can start to add groups of the permission groups whom you would like to be able to access this storage location. And so I think I'm going to add, let's add power users and basic users into that. Can you store things there in the impound lot? Can they store things there in the impound lot? Sure, no problem. Is it active? Yeah, that's true. Can they use this to store containers in? No. And I'll just save it there. And now we see an impound lot A. It's active. You can store things there. And those permission groups now have access to be able to store things in that storage location. So when an officer enters something, instead of entering it into a temp blocker, for example, which they would normally do, maybe they've dropped something off to the impound lot. Well, they will now have access and be able to see the impound lot when they go to enter an item, because we've added those groups. So those groups are now able to view that storage location. Okay. And so now another thing that you can do as well is, let's take a look at the destruction bin. And I'm going to select it. And now I'm going to go up here to reports. And there's a couple of different labels that I have here. The first one is a standard label for this storage location. And if I click create labels, I'm going to get this. I have my extremely long organization's name up at the top, and I have what this storage location is called, and the alphanumeric representation of the 2D barcode, which is also known as the GUID. That is there. I can print that off, and I can put this on my destruction bin. And so why would I want to put this label on my destruction bin? Well, that is a very good question. And the reason is if I now go into the scan area of safe, I can scan that storage locations barcode. Normally you'll be taking things out of temp blockers, for example, and scanning item barcodes. But if you'd like to, you can also scan storage location barcodes as well. And if I scan that destruction bin storage location, everything from that storage location area will show up down here in a list that I can then do something with. Perhaps I want to select everything by clicking the top arrow to the left of view, and then I'm going to go to actions, and I'm going to check all these items out to use the reason taken for disposal, or I'm going to go to actions and I'm going to just dispose of all of those items. Or maybe I want to go select all the items and go to reports and pull up a disposal list report listing all those items, the item numbers, their descriptions, etc. And then I'm going to dispose of them. And you can do things that way if you would like to. Now, the other label underneath reports is a customizable storage location / container label. And if I pull that up, it's going to look a little bit different. And it's going to pull up in my Adobe Acrobat PDF format here. And that label is going to look like this. And once again, it'll have my agency name at the top, the storage location name, and the alphanumeric representation of the 2D barcode. Or, maybe you don't want any of this on here. Maybe you just want the agency name. Well, we can definitely customize these storage location labels. We can take off the storage location name, take off the GUID here if you would like. These are customizable. So I'll let you start thinking about that if you'd like to have those types of labels customized for you. Just let any of us here at Tracker Products know over in support that you'd like that done, and we'll be more than happy to do that for you. Okay, something else. I'm just going to open up this temp blocker here and just very quickly show you that underneath this temp blocker, this is a storage location and sublocations that I created earlier. And underneath the temp blockers, we have a couple of different temp blockers, 1 and 2, and we have a number of items within those temp blockers. When you're in storage locations, you can go underneath your items column, and if you hover your mouse over the number, you can click on that number, and it's essentially going to run that search and bring back what those items are. Yeah, let's try that again. And there we go. There are the items that are stored and checked in currently in Temp Blocker 2. So if you ever want to very quickly get an idea of how many items you have stored in any storage location, you can quickly see that by viewing the items column. And you're going to get a count for those items. Once again, if you want to know exactly what those items are, hover your mouse over the items, click on them, it'll launch that search and bring back the results. And now finally, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about moving storage locations around within storage locations. Not necessarily going here and doing a storage location move, but I want to move around storage locations while I'm here within tools and storage locations. So we created this impound lot, and I'm thinking I want to move that around because the impound lot is really part of building B, let's say. So I'm going to select that storage location by clicking the checkbox in its row. And I'm going to click the Edit Selected Storage Locations field. And now I'd like to move that somewhere. Now everything above here is filled out exactly the way I would like it filled out. I don't want to change anything. I just want to move this storage location around. So I'm going to flip this slider in the bottom right-hand corner from off to on. And I'm going to start typing the name of a location where I would like it moved to. And I'll just type in build, and here we go, building B shows up. I'm going to click on that box and save it. And it will say that I'm moving a storage location, and that is going to change the listed hierarchy for any use of this storage location ever. Please make sure that you understand the impact of this before you complete the move. Well, I understand the impact, so I'm going to proceed. And that just, it's telling me, hey, you're moving the storage locations out of this this root directory, and you're moving it underneath building B. So when you go and move something there, it's now going to be underneath building B. And if we open up and expand building B, there is our impound lot storage location. And nothing's really changed. The groups remain the same that we specified. It's active. You can store things there. You cannot add containers to this storage location. Everything has remained the same, other than it's simply now underneath building B. Now that is going to differ from a storage location move, which is really more for moving around containers and keeping chain of custody entries, for example, with those containers as they're moved, versus what we just did, which is really kind of just moving storage locations around within the storage location structures and not necessarily applying any chain of custody entries to those storage locations. All right. And now I think I'd like to open this up to any questions. Does anyone have any questions regarding anything that we've covered related to storage locations? Nope. It doesn't look like anything is coming in, which is completely fine. If you do ever have any questions related to anything regarding SAFE, please don't ever hesitate to give us a call here in support. And you can reach us at 855-517-6381, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have. But other than that, I think that is all that I have for you today related to storage locations. So thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and I look forward to talking with you all in the future. Thank you and have a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.